New footage of Lil Jeff has just been released by his parents, and it's causing serious waves online. This isn't just another random clip-its footage captured just moments before the Bloodhound rapper was killed. And once you see it, you'll realize just how wild and chaotic this situation really was. But that's not even the most shocking part. Lil Jeff's parents have broken their silence, and what they're revealing flips the entire narrative on its head. According to Lil Jeff's father, Jeffrey Harris, who posted a long message on Facebook, his son wasn't caught lacking like many people assumed. The internet had built up a story that Jeff was just out and about, off guard, when his enemies found him. But Harris says that's completely false. In fact, Jeff wasn't being hunted. He was the one doing the hunting. He was out looking for his enemies that night. Things just didn't go his way, and Harris didn't type his message like someone grieving quietly. He made it personal. It was clear this wasn't over. He sent a direct warning, not just to the public, but to the people who took his son's life, signaling that retaliation could be on the table. You might expect the internet to respond with sympathy, maybe even empathy. After all, Lil Jeff was still someone's son, someone's friend. And at first, there were those moments. But once Harris started posting threats and speaking like the story was far from over, the tone shifted, especially on Reddit. The comments got brutal. People mocked Harris for treating his son's death like a movie plot. Some criticized his street-first mentality, saying he was part of the reason Jeff ended up dead. One user said Jeff was doomed from the start because of the kind of father he had. Another didn't hold back, calling Harris a sociopath. Instead of sympathy, the post sparked more mockery and deeper conversations about why cycles of violence keep repeating. To many, this was just another example of live by it, die by it. The internet can be cold, especially when the person being mourned once glorified violence. That coldness only grew after users resurfaced an old music video from Jeff. In it, he rapped, "Them NS did what they did and had to pay the consequence." And in another line, "When I speak, it's only facts." He was screaming awe when he got hit. Real tough up on the net. Now he on the floor looking like a... Then came an old interview where Jeff claimed to have dropped up to 11 bodies. Once people heard that, sympathy all but vanished. The mood changed from another young life gone too soon to, well, what did you expect? This wasn't speculation. It wasn't internet rumors or street gossip. Jeff himself had made the violence part of his image. His story was in his music. And in that same music, he even said a man isn't considered made until he's caught. 2 bodies, this story isn't just tragic. It's a raw look at a cycle that many say needs to be broken, even as others continue to glorify it.
Hey, now I heard King Von say in one of his songs, "You not a killer unless you got 2 bodies."
Exactly, now you get it.
Damn, so that's real?
It's real.
People are starting to connect the dots, and the conversation around Lil Jeff's death is shifting. It's no longer just about mourning, it's turning into a moment of reflection, a chance to look at the bigger picture. Every time a rapper from the trenches dies, the same questions come up. Was it jealousy, beef, bad luck? But in Jeff's case, there's no mystery. He wasn't just connected to the street, she was deeply involved, playing a high-stakes game where the outcome was always going to be life or death. This time he lost. That's why reactions to his death have been so divided. For some, it's just another day in the streets, another casualty in a cycle that never seems to end. Others don't react at all, completely desensitized by how common this kind of violence has become. Then there are those who see Jeff's story as a warning, a cautionary tale for up-and-coming rappers who glamorize this lifestyle without realizing how real the consequences are.
If they had some real guidance in their life, like motherfuckers who's really standing on it, I feel like Lil Jeff and Lil Schoon, them little niggas would be, they'd they was something to work with.
No matter where you stand on Lil Jeff's story, one thing is clear. The newly released footage and his father's explosive words have completely shifted the narrative. This is no longer just about mourning another young rapper lost to violence. Now, people are dissecting the choices that led up to it all. Was this avoidable? Could things have turned out differently? Or was this always the inevitable outcome? It also raises a much bigger question, one that's been looming over hip-hop for years. When does the cycle of violence end? And more importantly, does anyone genuinely want it to? Because every time a rapper dies under similar circumstances, the reactions follow the same pattern shock. Debate, a few RIP posts, and then it's back to business as usual. If this is your first time hearing about Lil Jeff, don't worry, we're going to break it down. To understand how he died, you first have to understand how he lived. Because for better or worse, Jeff's life is a reflection of a reality that many young rappers still face today. Bloodhound Lil Jeff, born Jeffrey Lamar Harris on July 14, 2002, was a rising name in Chicago's drill scene. He had what draws attention in that world-raw talent, deep street ties, and a lifestyle that fed into both his music and his mystique. But Jeff's story wasn't just about the music. It was also about the environment that raised him, and how he mirrored that harsh reality in every verse he wrote. He was born to Latasha Lucas and Jeffrey Harris, and grew up on the south side of Chicago, a place where survival is a daily battle, and the system rarely plays fair. He started school at CIC's Longwood campus, graduated from Harold Washington Elementary, and later earned his high school diploma from Curie Metropolitan High School in 2020. In 2021, he briefly enrolled in online classes at Daly College, but eventually dropped out. For Jeff, life outside school was never just about hanging out. It was about navigating a world filled with pressure, risk, and the ever-present threat of violence. And that world didn't just shape him. It became the fuel for his music.
Can you start by telling us where you from?
Chicago, North, east side of Chicago. East side of Chicago.
East side.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it was like for yourself growing up on the east side?
Shit, like anybody else from the rack. The same shit. Literally.
It was about knowing the unspoken rules, reading between the lines, and realizing that the streets could either make you a star or become the reason you fall.
My career got shot up when I was like 14. I was some stupid ass shit.
Lil Jeff wasn't just a kid experimenting with music, found his voice in drill because it reflected everything he lived and breathed. He looked up to local artists who turned their pain into lyrics, and he wanted to do the same. After leaving school, Jeff turned to the streets and officially became a member of the 079 Bloodhound Gang, a faction under Drill City. The Bloodhounds were known far beyond their neighborhood, linked to multiple murders and shootings. Throughout the early 2020s, their name carried weight. When Jeff started rapping under the name Bloodhound Lil Jeff, it wasn't just a stage name. It was his set, his identity, his world. Being affiliated with the Bloodhounds, a faction under the Black Disciples, meant that music wasn't just self-expression. It was representation. His songs weren't just tracks. They were messages, warnings, sometimes even confessions. When he dropped Awe in February 2024, the streets took notice. His raw energy, the way he delivered his truth, it all hit. The song quickly racked up over 100,000 views on YouTube and 10,000 streams on Spotify. But the impact went beyond numbers people believed him. And belief in drill rap is powerful. It makes you a star. But it also paints a target on your back. Lil Jeff wasn't just rapping about the street. She was living them. His lyrics weren't fictional. They were tied to real events. In one of his videos, he referenced a double homicide from January 26, 2024, where Monteo Drench Za Williams and Robert Lil Rob Boston, both from rival crew, Nitty Block, were killed in broad daylight. That shooting made headlines across Chicago. When Jeff referenced it in his music, it came off like a victory lap. That kind of credibility builds fame fast, but it also brings heat from enemies and attention from law enforcement. One of the closest people in Jeff's life was Bloodhound Q50, another rapper, a known figure in the streets. Their bond went beyond music. They were brothers in every sense, sharing loyalty, struggle, and survival. Songs like BH4L and Hardy Boys weren't just collabs. They were street diaries. If they weren't recording, they were posted on the block. And they weren't shy about their lifestyle. In interviews and on social media, both Q50 and Jeff openly claimed bodies. Q50 said he was involved in 8 murders. Jeff took it further, saying his count was around 10 or 11. Whether that was truth or bravado didn't matter. The streets and the police were both listening. That target on Jeff's back became all too real on June 8, 2024. Dressed in all black, he was out with 2 associates when they ran into members of Trap City Charge Zone 7. Whatever tension already existed erupted into chaos. Surveillance footage caught the whole thing shouting, weapons drawn, and then gunfire. When the smoke cleared, Jeff had been shot multiple times. He was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but it was too late. At 5:46 p.m., he was pronounced dead. The autopsy revealed he'd been hit 19 times. News of his death spread fast. While fans mourned, the broader internet responded differently. Sympathy was hard to come by. On platforms like Reddit, the narrative was harsh. Jeff wasn't an innocent victim. He played the game, and the game took him out. And just when his legacy might have had a chance to settle, things got worse. After his death, a music video dropped where Jeff doubled down on his violent persona, claiming to have killed 11 people. For many, it confirmed what they already believed. Lil Jeff wasn't just rapping about that life, he was living it until it caught up with him.
Von saying in one of his songs, "You not a killer unless you got 2 bodies."
Exactly, now you get it.
Damn, so that's real?
For real.
It was the kind of ending that made a lot of people stop feeling sympathy and start saying, well, what did you expect? The pity faded fast, and in some corners of the internet, turned into straight-up mockery. Even though close friends and fellow artists like Dodd Tweaker posted emotional tributes, to many, Lil Jeff's death was just another tragic headline in a city all too familiar with losing young men to gun violence. But his music didn't die with him. Tracks like Through the Ceiling, Drax, and Switches were released posthumously, keeping his name alive. Still, those songs echoed the same gritty energy that defined his life and may have contributed to his death. They weren't just tributes. They were reminders of a lifestyle that offered no easy way out. For better or worse, they served as a final stamp on the legacy Jeff left behind. Lil Jeff's story is a harsh reflection of the reality many underground rappers face. On one hand, music gives artists a way to express their truth. On the other, that truth is often what puts a target on their back. Jeff's life and death showed how thin the line really is between rapping about violence and becoming a victim of it. His music wasn't just about entertainment, it was shaped by his choices, his environment, and the streets that raised him. Some saw him as a rising star. Others saw just another name added to a long list of fallen youth. But whether you liked him, hated him, or barely knew his name, his story forces a bigger question. Why does this cycle never end? Because for every Lil Jeff that dies, another kid is picking up a mic, stepping into the same world, telling the same stories and facing the same danger. And it wasn't just the music that brought attention to Lil Jeff's death, it also cast a harsh spotlight on the dangerous and unpredictable world of urban gang rivalries. His murder reignited focus on the long-standing beef between the Bloodhound gangsters and the Trap City gangsters, 2 crews whose conflict had already shaped and taken many lives before Jeff was even in the picture. This wasn't just personality. It was about identity, survival, and the communities caught in the middle. To understand why Bloodhound and Trap City clashed so violently, you have to rewind. These gangs didn't just emerge out of thin air. They were born from poverty, a lack of opportunity, and a deep sense of abandonment by the system. When legal paths to money and safety are few, people create their own. That's how both sides gained power, respect, and influence. Originally, the factions Chris World, Trap City, 400 East, MTV 079, and Drill City were part of a larger alliance known as Bloodhound, Euro 679. That unity had existed for over a decade, with discussions of it dating back to at least 2020 on Reddit. But everything changed in 2023. According to members of Trap City, the alliance shattered after someone from Drill City allegedly stole a chain belonging to one of their members. The situation escalated when that same chain was reportedly lost during a high-speed chase with police, either by a figure named SJ or someone close to him. That moment marked the breaking point. Tensions exploded, sides were taken, and the alliance crumbled. Feeling betrayed, Trap City distanced itself, and other sets aligned with Drill City, locking the two sides into a deadly feud that continues to claim lives, including Lil Jeff's. Trap City officially cut ties with the Bloodhound Alliance and turned against its former allies, a move that shocked many, given how close the two factions once were. That bond ran deep, so deep in fact, that Lil Jeff once posted a screenshot of a text from his mother reminding him he used to sleep in the same bed as some Trap City members. But that closeness made the betrayal cut even deeper, and it didn't take long for tensions to turn violent. Shootings broke out between the sets, and it wasn't just talk anymore. Bodies started dropping. At its core, the feud began as a territorial struggle. Bloodhound had already staked out their zones, while Trap City, the newer crew on the block, was hungry to carve out their own turf. What started as boundary disputes quickly escalated into something far more volatile. Control over streets turned into battles for power, money, and respect. And in their world, disrespect always came with consequences. What followed wasn't just beef, it was all-out war. Fistfights turned to vandalism, robberies, and drive-bys. Local businesses suffered, families lived in fear, and innocent bystanders hoped they wouldn't end up as collateral damage. But what made things worse was that this wasn't just about violence in the streets, it became cultural. The gangs had their own slang, fashion, and especially music. Drill and trap became war cries, not just songs. Artists used lyrics to diss rivals, claim bodies, and sometimes issue outright threats. And anyone who still believed music doesn't influence real-life violence clearly wasn't paying attention. Because in this world, words turn into bullets when reputations are on the line. Over the years, several flashpoints made it clear just how deep this rivalry ran. In 2010, a nightclub fight between Bloodhound and Trap City members spilled into the streets, leaving multiple people injured. Media coverage exploded, drawing public attention to the growing war. Then, in 2015, a high-ranking Bloodhound member was gunned down in what looked like a direct hit from Trap City. That set off a chain of revenge killings, turning the streets into a battlefield. Law enforcement tried to step in, but the truth is, police rarely stop a gang war. They just show up after the damage is done. One of Trap City's most infamous figures was Robert Trap City Rob Thompson. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a leader, known for handling serious business both within his set and against their enemies. By 2024, tensions hit another boiling point. A shooting involving both crews left several injured, and Marcus Lil Jefferson later died at the hospital. Eyes immediately turned to Trap City Rob surveillance footage placed him at the scene, and his reputation did the rest. But what happened next stunned everyone. The charges against Rob were dropped. lack of evidence, and a legal argument based on mutual combat let him walk, rumors spread fast that this wasn't just a one-sided ambush. Word on the street was both crews knew what they were walking into, and everyone involved had accepted the risks. It wasn't just a hit. It was a War on more chapter in a cycle that keeps spinning.